This
for those of you
conference
who
will
are
now
new,
be recorded.
is a committee that's conferred decision-making authority by council to deal with matters under the Planning Act, largely Section 45, which deal with consents, which is the legal term to sever a piece of land, and minor variances. And a consent has two forms. It can be for a new lot, two fundamental forms anyway. It can be for a new lot. It can be for a merger of land or lot boundary adjustment. So in other words, a piece of land comes off on a abutting property. It doesn't become a new lot. It merges with the abutting property that now wants it or needs it, or there's a need there. And there's a variety of reasons for that. I won't go into that right now. Or an easement in greater than 21 years, a lease or an easement in greater than 21 years under the Planning Act would be another reason to have or undergo the consent process. Those are the primary ones that we deal with. There's others such as validation of title, mortgage, correction of mortgage, things of that matter, or lots that have inadvertently merged and are wishing to become separate again or merged under title. But those three ones are the key ones: an easement or a lease or a lot boundary or a brand new lot. In a municipality like Mono, we don't have a town per se, so we're not like, say, New Tecumseth, which has rural areas and a defined town of Alliston. In urban areas, land division is generally more supported because it allows for more optimal and intensification of uses within an urban area that has, municipal services. Lot disseverance in rural areas is generally more carefully controlled because it doesn't assist or provide intensification opportunities that are better allocated in urban areas under services, full services, and the related co-services that support an urban settlement. We see some of both in Mono, mainly though in the rural area, and often for lot boundary adjustments, and sometimes for brand new lots. And there is a limited provision for a new lot in the rural area. It's a fairly high test. You have to have generally an original half lot, which is 100 acres. And you're allowed up to 2 lots, and that runs with the property. So not 2 per person, but 2. Anyway, I don't want to digress too much on planning matters. I want to try and get you a bit more on the procedural aspect, things of what you need to do, but that's consent applications or consent and sever. The other one is minor variance I didn't mention, and minor variance looks at adjustments to what I call or characterize the performance standards of a zoning bylaw. And I make a distinction between an official plan land use designation and a zoning bylaw zone classification. And I use those 2 words because it better explains the difference between the 2. So before I get into minor variance, let's just have a basic understanding of designation versus zone. A designation are fundamentally industrial, institutional, commercial, and residential. But they all vary under zoning classification depending on where you are. So for example, if we use a Tom and Dick and the Tom, Dick, and Harry analogy, Tom may own a single family home in the rural area of Mono on a 4-acre lot or a 40-acre lot. And Dick may own a 3,000 square foot apartment unit in a condominium building in downtown Toronto on the 16th floor. They're both residential, but the zoning classification for each are very different. So in the former, you would see an R1, rural 1, or residential 1 zone for a single family dwelling. But in the latter, you would see something like RHC, residential, or RHD, residential high density condo, with a number ascribed to it that may represent the total number of stories of a building. So there's the key difference, the zoning versus land use designation. The designation under the official plan comes with a body of policies that support and guide land use management, regardless of what category it's in, industrial, institutional, commercial, residential. And it speaks to a lot of the key principles of good land use management and community character and community preservation, community enhancement. I'm not going to go into that. I want to come back and focus then on a minor variance process under the zoning bylaw. And we have several zones in our bylaw. Urban areas have a lot more. And for those who are new, Eric and Dave, you may want to look through that bylaw on occasion, and the official plan as well, to get more familiar with what they're about. But a minor variance, as I said, deals with performance standards, and those are the design-related triggers on a zone. So, for example, the frontage of a lot. There is usually either a minimum or a maximum lot frontage. And lot area, same thing. There would be a minimum in some cases, and now there's a maximum lot area. There would then be lot coverage, which is the overall ground footprint of built form on that lot relative to the lot area. So let's see, a 1,000 square foot home on a lot that had 10,000 square feet would be 10% lot coverage, if you understand that. Sometimes you see applications with lot coverage issues, but not all that often, because to achieve overall lot coverage would require a fair bit of coverage on a lot, whether it's rural or urban. But the challenge would be more in an urban setting on a smaller lot, if it were to arise. Then the other things, of course, are setbacks: front yard setbacks, setback of the building or built form or primary building from the front yard, from the frontage, and side yards and rear yard. If it's not a corner lot, so if it's not a lot at a corner, then it has a lot abutting it on either side. Those two side yards are interior side yard setbacks. If it is a corner lot, then one of them would be interior on the abutting lot, the other one would be exterior. And that's the situation tonight. 13 Linda is a corner lot, and it happens to have an exterior side yard setback and an interior one. The other thing is height. And usually there's a maximum permissibility of height. Sometimes a minimum, depending on an urban situation you might see in a downtown area, but generally a maximum. That generally covers what the performance elements are. And then sometimes people need exceptions to those. So a classic one is a side yard setback, say for a garage, attached or not. And it may be difficult for an owner to meet, and I'm just going to throw out a number. Instead of 5 feet, they can only meet 4 feet, and are seeking relief for a setback of only 4 feet as opposed to 5 feet required. The other thing to keep in mind, though, in all these instances, is if someone gets a setback for 4 feet, it's not 4 feet 1.5 inches. And if that were to happen on site, they would need literally another variance to alleviate that 1.5 inch mistake, if we want to call it that. So it's important that that you meet the setback as it is in the bylaw or under the relief you get. So if you get a relief to 4 feet from 5, it's not 4 and a little bit. It's no more than 4 feet, just as a point of clarification. The decisions that council or committee makes are collectively deliberated and voted on. And you have 3 key options here. One is to approve it if committee, through their deliberations, feels that the variance is acceptable. And I'll talk about the 4 tests, or deny it, or defer it. And we see all of those, although not so often deferral too much. It's usually one or the other, approval, deny, but it can be a deferral as well. Committee could say, well, we need more information here, Mr. Applicant. So you go away and give us a bit more information before we make a material decision on this one way or another. Now, currently, it used to be that you could appeal decision if you were a neighbor, but under Bill 23, I think it is, that now has been taken away. So an appeal today, as of January 1st this year, is now between the applicant and the council, the town. So I just want to make that point of clarification as well. The 4 tests that a minor variance undergoes to get its consideration of having merit or not is it desirable? Is it minor in nature? And does it meet the general intent of the official plan policy, the pertinent official plan policy? And does it meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw? I think the case I gave you, in most instances, someone seeking a 4 feet setback as opposed to having to require 5 feet, in the vast majority of cases would meet those tests. Now, there could be exceptions. The other thing to keep in mind is that it's not just a numbers game. In other words, there could be a situation where, say, a garage that is seeking a setback relief of, shall we say, 3 feet from a 6 foot setback, so half the distance, is more impactful than a garage that is seeking 5 feet or less than that from 6 feet. So say 2 feet. So it depends on the context of the variance as well. However, in most cases, a greater relief usually is cause for more scrutiny than one that is needing less relief, but not always is that the case. It has to look at overall impact and character of the area and context. I guess just to wrap up, in making a decision, this is mindful that an applicant can, if they disagree with the decision, once we issue the notice of decision, so once council committee makes its decision and the planning department issues notice of decision, there's a time frame by which an applicant, if they're not happy with the decision, say a denial, can appeal to the tribunal, in this case, the Ontario Land Tribunal. That's changed. It used to be the OMB, Ontario Municipal Board. It then got renamed the LPAT, and now it's OLT. And that seems to be sticking for the time being. I know that Bob's asked me to do the number 1 and 2. I don't know if we've done call to order, Bob, I forget. Number 2 is your emergency exits, but as Bob would say, you all know where your entrances are in your various dwellings to get out in case of an issue or a fire. That's really if we're in a public forum to deal with that. Conflicts of pecuniary interest, really that's of course where you may have, or you reasonably ought to know that there may be a perception that you have a conflict of interest. So probably always best to err on the side of caution and clarity and indicate that you do. I suppose if a committee member were the brother-in-law of an applicant, they may say, I choose to step aside for this application and let the rest of committee make its decision. Or if you think that there might be a perception that there's a conflict of interest, it's always a good idea to declare that and say, I think because of what I do for a living or whatever it might be, I think there's something might be construed as a conflict of interest here, Mr. Chairman. What guidance, what should I do? And I mean, I suppose the committee member can choose to step aside. I've never seen a case where that's been deliberated. Usually that member steps aside and says, for the sake of an abundance of caution, I'll step aside on an application and let it proceed under deliberation on the remaining members. So the next step, of course, is the approval of the agenda. And we also, though, you also have to elect a chair.
Yeah, Dave,
So
you
that's probably,
need to go to number 4 if you're done. And then the chair will carry on past that.
right. So it is, yeah, sorry. So number 4 is election of the chair. The committee must deliberate amongst itself as to who they would like to elect a chair, and anyone can put a motion on to elect themselves or another member, and then the vote's taken, and that decision is made. And that's the next thing we need to do so that we can go forward with the remaining items on the agenda tonight.
I'll nominate Bob.
Okay, so
Thank you. I'm happy to do it. But we do need a second.
We should nominate Corin just because she's not here.
She can't
I'll second
decline if she's not here, Jerry.
that. That's right. I'll second Bob's nomination.
Dave,
Sorry.
it's still your meeting.
well, I guess, are there anyone who opposes that motion? Is everyone in favor? Is that a nod, thumbs up? I
Yeah.
would say that carries. Bob, you are the chairman.
Thank you, David. Thank you for that introduction. With that, it's my meeting now. Well, it's our meeting, but I'm the chair of that. So, David, thank you for what you said there. Let me say this. Our public meeting is advertised at 7:30. One thing that we learned a long time ago is that because it is publicly advertised that way, then we can't start the public meeting until it says 7:30 here. So we've got 5 minutes here, but that's okay because we've got a few things that we can talk about. And that one of them, Dave did talk about emergency exits. Let's move on to number 5, conflicts of pecuniary interest. You can declare them now or at any point during the meeting. Fred Simpson sent us a very comprehensive, I've got it here, Standing Citizen Advisory Committees, a practical guide. So I hope you've had a chance to look at it. But on the subject of pecuniary interest, on point number 4 in that guide, it's quite detailed about what a pecuniary interest is. And that Dave did make the point, and if you're in doubt, then bring it up. Sometimes you may not have a pecuniary interest. You may have an influence. And you know, on the committees that I've been on over the years, I've always declared this is my interest. You know, this is my interest. And if anybody's got an objection to that, then please speak up. And that. So I like Dave said, sometimes you err on the side of caution. But by strict definition, a pecuniary interest is a financial interest in what we're discussing in that. So again, if anybody has it now or later, let us know about that. Let's move along to point number 6 on our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a mover for the approval of the agenda, please?
I will move the approval of the agenda.
Thank you. And seconder?
I'll second it.
Dave, thank you. Are there any objections to it? Being none, so Susan, you can put that one down. Next, number 7 here. Let's move along quickly because 7:30 is coming up. This is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of our last meeting, which was Committee of Adjustment 02-2023. In this case, there's only Jerry and I who attended that meeting. So Jerry, I need you to move to approve it, and then I'm going to second it, and it'll only be you and I voting on it because Eric and Dave weren't there. So Jerry, are there any issues with the
No, I will move it as read.
And I will second it then. And since the two of us that were at that meeting have moved and seconded it, then that's considered to be approved. Point number 8.
Susan, is there anything on that we should talk about? Because if not, we can certainly get it approved online, I guess, or whatever. If we want it voted on, Bob.
Well, I think we just did, Jerry. I think we're
Yeah.
good with that. I had no issues with, Susan takes wonderful minutes. I have no problem with it either. So,
Okay.
so
Is that okay with you, Susan?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Good
don't
stuff.
want to carry these things over and that. So the minutes of that meeting, Committee of Adjustment 02/2023, are approved. So that is that. We got about 2 more minutes here. Let me, couple of things that I wrote down here. First off, thank you for having me as the chair for this year. It is a tradition with these committees that each new year we elect a chair or re-elect the current chair. So I encourage Eric and Dave. You will see. I'm going to run these meetings the way I've always run these meetings. It's pretty straightforward. It's not complicated. So, as you get familiar with this, give some thought about in 2024 if you're interested in being the chair of the Committee of Adjustment. So that was one thing I wanted to say. We got 1 more minute. Susan, 1 more minute while we got 1 more minute. Susan? ID badges.
Oh,
See
that's,
what ID badges. Fred didn't, as Committee of Adjustment members, we should have ID badges. And the purpose of that is if there's an application, you can see there's mine, which apparently is valid until December 1st of this year.
Yeah.
If you're going to visit a site to look at what was going on there, this is something I learned at a Committee of Adjustment meeting. We should have ID badges so that if somebody asks you, who are you and what are you doing here? Then you can have that. So I just say this, Susan, you're going to talk with Fred about it. In prep for that, you see your pictures on there. So one of 2 things, you're either going to, Jerry, you still got yours from last year, right?
Yeah, mine's good.
So you're either going to need to go in and have a picture taken, or the one that I've got here is one that I had taken and sent into to Fred as a JPEG. So I'm just giving you a heads up on that. You're going to need it, and you should have it. So that's one thing. With that, I'm over the time limit. So it is 7:30. I've got some more stuff I'll talk about later. So with that, I'm going to open the public meeting on tonight's application. So this is a Committee of Adjustment 03/2023. It's a consideration of an application for a consent. That's a lot boundary adjustment per the Planning Act, RSO 1990. The application number is A01-23. The applicants, Marcel and Lisa, I'm going to apologize in advance. I will mispronounce your last names, not intentionally, but maybe you can help me here. Marcel, is it, or Lisa?
Piper?
Piper?
Yeah,
And Lisa, your last name, please?
Mikhailuk.
Thank you. Because these are recorded, and I again apologize. I would have butchered both of them. Subject property.
maybe you should give it a try.
Marcel Piper.
Yeah.
And Lisa Machalik.
Mikhailuk.
Mikhailuk, thank you. my wife always points out that occasionally if I practice enough, I get something right. So Mikhailuk, thank you. And thanks for your patience. So subject property is 13 Linda Avenue. On the official plan, this is Greenbelt Hamlet. Zoning is rural residential. That's RU. The purpose, the applicant is seeking relief for an in-law suite addition that does not comply with section 5(1)H II, or the maximum size of such an accessory apartment shall be a maximum of 30% of the gross floor area of a single detached dwelling house, excluding the basement and private garage. So the existing dwelling is 1,100 square feet, and the proposed additional suite is 1,216 square feet. So that's my introduction. And again, you will see what the process, what we're doing here is always the same. With that introduction, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Planning, Dave Trotman, who has given us a very comprehensive planning report dated Thursday, March 30th on this. Dave, your report is comprehensive and excellent. So we don't have to go through it all. And committee members, once Dave's finished with this, you'll have an opportunity to question the applicants, to question Dave Trotman about this. So Dave, is there anything, again, we don't want to go through it all. Is there anything you want to highlight, please?
First blush, this seemed like a significant matter. If you crunch the numbers, and I've done so on, I think it's page, top of page 2. And I've noted in there, it would be almost 4 times the permissible amount, above 30%. And in fact, the addition is larger than the house. However, on reflection, and I'm not going to, I will say this, Marcel, once Donna gave me the architectural site plan, although I appreciate what you did in SketchUp, I really do. Her architectural site plan gave me better sense of scale, notwithstanding the dimensions you provided. And so that was very helpful because it gave a better context in terms of massing scale. And so it's important that we got that, and we did. We also got the elevations, which are important in a case like this. And I don't know if everyone's seen the property. I have, of course. I believe Bob has. You get to see that in this neighborhood, these were older homes, relatively, relative to other areas in that part of Mono, and they're on fairly large lots. Because of the requirement for septic bed, although they've got municipal water. And it quickly came to my understanding and realization that this addition wasn't going to be excessive in terms of massing or scale or impact to the character of the existing neighborhood. The report cites out the fact that although it's going to add an addition, the size of the house, or just slightly above the existing size of the house, which is relatively small. It's on a big lot. It's 1 story. It's not 2 stories. It's the same height, therefore, as the existing house. And it's going to be tucked in behind the new garage. So from the street, it wouldn't be all that obvious as well. The old garage is going to be converted into an entranceway, an enhanced entranceway. And the other fact is that looking at the area, it was obvious enough to me that if there was going to be any impact at all, it would be to the abutting neighbor to the south, 11 Linda. But on site, you realize that house too is set fairly well back in terms of that interior side yard setback from the mutual property boundary. Once I had the plans from Donna Pasco, Marcel's designer, and she's very good, I've dealt with her before. And once I saw the elevations and the 3D axonometric, and once I had gone out on site, the number component was less significant. It was obvious that it was going to provide a need. They have a letter to that effect. This is not for Airbnb or for rental. Their mother-in-law, depending on who we're talking to here, but Marcel's mother-in-law, I think, and her husband are going to live there. So it's going to create a family supportive environment. The overall gross floor area really is probably not much larger, smaller than many, many other houses being built today, 2,000 plus square feet or so. I mean, some are much larger than that, even in urban areas, never mind in suburban areas or rural areas in Mono or elsewhere. So that is sort of an overview of this report. The one thing I have done, though, is I've cited some conditions, and I usually do. There's usually some conditions to these reports. And in this case, some of them are standard. Number one, if you read my report, is you got to pay any outstanding taxes, fees, and charges. That's got to be done. And I've also made it subject to a building code permit issuance. Now, I have no doubt that one can be gotten, but I'm still making that a trigger test for whatever reasons. And I've specified some parameters there. So despite the plans that have been provided, and it's not that we don't believe Marcel or the applicants, but we need to have things in writing. And so therefore I've noted that it's not to exceed a certain GFA and with a height not to exceed the existing. And I've given some overall out-to-out measurements as there as well. And I've done the same with the two-car garage. And I've also said, you know, the independent septic system needs a building permit. Well, we know that. I have no reason why that can't be gotten. I have every belief that it will be issued on review by Dufferin County Building, but it's a trigger condition anyway. I'm going to skip number 3 and just go to number 4 because that's a fairly standard one. And I think because committee may wish to have a bit of dialogue on number 3, which is about landscaping. But anyway, 4 says the owner understands and agrees in writing that any reconfigured driveway needs to get permission and approval from Town of Mono Public Works. Now, I know the driveway is going to be shifted modestly to the south to align with the new garage, but it is a reconfiguration of some measure anyway. So Marcel knows that, and he's got to get that permission from Mono Public Works. I don't foresee an issue there, but that is Mono Public Works call. Director of Public Works makes that call. I mean, to that note, though, I mean, the sight lines in that area, of course, are good. We're not in a rural area where there's rolls and hills and valleys, so I'd be surprised if that weren't granted, but that's still a trigger condition that I've noted. I don't know about road widenings. That's number 5. I don't believe any will be required, but again, I'm leaving that to Public Works to make that assessment should there be a road widening off the frontage. And then I've also made a condition about the servicing, if required. I have put in there that the application be subject to review and compliance by the town engineer if required, and including the engineering measures there, potable water, sanitary, and stormwater. Now, I know that the sanitary and the potable water will require a building code permit or certification maybe, or confirmation of quality and quantity for water, and they're both, you know, operable and safe. I'm just giving the town engineer an opportunity to weigh in on this application from the engineering matters there as cited if need be. If she says to me, doesn't concern me, Dave, because Dufferin County Building Works will be looking at this, then that would satisfy that condition. Number 7, we can talk about now or after number 3, which is landscaping, but maybe I'll just go to it now because it's fairly straightforward. And that is because Donna Pascoe did an architectural site plan, she uncovered the fact that the exterior side yard setback for the existing house is just a minor bit deficient. I believe we need 7.53 meters. I think I cited it in my report, and there's only 7.51. So you remember when I said a deficient, a relief to 4 feet is not 4 feet 1.5 inches, it's 4 feet. Well, in this case, whoever put up the original house was off by a tad measurement to not meet 7.53. meters. It's 7.51. It's about as minor, or 7.63. It's about as minor as it can get, but it's still deficient. So it was built that way. It's existing, but it's not legal non-conforming. Depending on when that house was built, it probably had to meet that requirement under this bylaw. So this is an opportunity to legalize it at the same time as the primary application for related to the addition. That brings us back to condition number 3. Chair McCray, we can talk about that, or I can let committee weigh in on their overall thoughts on this application and then follow back on that. But what I have said in there is that if additional hard and soft landscape, and I think in this case, now really seeing the lay of the land there, it would be mainly soft landscaping, meaning trees, not fencing, for example. But it could be if committee chose to apply that. Then it's got to be borne by the applicant. The owner of 11 Linda shouldn't bear the cost of that, of course, if it's going to provide more screening to their satisfaction. Now, we've had information from her abroad. She's in Australia, and Marcel, that was good that you were able to reach out to her and get some confirmation from her. This is exactly why it's important to sort of confer with neighbors where you can to find out where they stand on an application. And though that note says she's fine with it as long as it's not, that your addition's not 3 stories tall. Well, it's not going to be 3, it's going to be 1. So I would rest on that comment from her saying she's fine with this. Even to say she doesn't expect to see any more landscaping. However, committee can weigh in on that and say, well, no, we think there should be some landscaping or not. Or we can leave that to the applicant's designer with me involved to say, well, you know, maybe a few more trees would be an appropriate and right thing to do for screening of the final addition as attached. And it could be done at that time. It could be that once it's built, you know, a bit more screening opposite 11 Linda would be a nice and appropriate thing to do. So condition number 3 doesn't have to stand in any notice of decision if committee goes forward to approve of this. It can be deliberated amongst yourselves, and I can provide some comment and guidance if you want me to.
Dave, thank you. I think, you know,
I'm open to questions.
Yeah, we'll leave that up to the committee. So thank you, Dave.
Sure.
Marcel, do you have, this is your turn. Do you have anything else to add to what David just said, please?
No, sounds very thorough. So luckily I was able to reach my neighbor who was in Australia. So it was a bit of a hunt to get her, get a message from her, but I was able to do so. And we met a few times, and she's been very keen on having a young family live in the neighborhood. And that's what she also expressed in her message to me. And the way she's located, her house. Oh, is that me, or I'm hearing some feedback here on the line, I think.
I think it's you, but I don't know.
Yeah, it might be. Sorry. So the way her house is located is that she's on the south, the majority of her house is on the south side. The north side, what we're on, is a garage. So the only impact that she will have is if she sits on her back deck in the summer. She will not see the backyards from her house, the way it's located. So no, I mean, Lisa's here as well, sitting next to me. Unless Lisa has anything else, we have no concerns at this point. Lisa, do you have anything?
No, not at this time.
Okay, no, very good. All right, at this point in time, committee, this is where the committee can ask questions of our director of planning and or the applicant. I'm going to go in alphabetical order here. So Dave, you're first up. Questions, concerns, whatever. Once we're done with this and any feedback from the public, then the committee will be discussing. So Dave, any questions, comments, please? And you're muted. Dave, you're muted. Thank you.
my finger worked a little too fast there. So I actually had a question on the original application. It showed that the water was a private well, not municipal. And on Dave's report, it made reference to municipal. So I'm just curious which it actually is.
So we are on well water, septic and well.
Okay.
You're
the well-
correct. I stand corrected. It is well. Sorry about that.
Okay, that makes sense. So basically, you're going to be ramping up the capacity of the well to handle the actual new building and the extra amount of people there. So septic's obviously going to be fine. I just wondered, is the well test something township deals with, or is that strictly a homeowner issue?
I can answer that question. It goes through certification. I believe the building department will look at that. But again, I've also triggered a condition in the recommendation to have the town engineer look at that and whatever the town engineer would require to ensure that.
Other than that, I'm good. You managed to get a hold of the neighbor, so hopefully she's generally going to be happy, but once that structure's up there, it's not going to be moving. So I hope she's pretty clear on what is going to be within her state lines.
I did give her an opportunity. I asked if she wanted to see the plans by email, and she opted out on that. She's like, as long as it's not 3 stories, I don't care.
Okay, it sounds like you get a good neighbor. That's
Yeah.
great.
Okay, Dave, anything else? No. Eric, please.
I've looked at both the application and Dave's report. Certainly, I don't have any trouble with the desirability and the general conformity. It was the minor aspect that troubled me at first, but as I read the section, there's quite a bit of discretion in the committee, and I think David's comments about it being an overall impact is the best context in which to see that it can fit within the minor variance. But I have no other comments or questions on the application.
Very good. Thank you, Eric. Jerry, please.
No, it's a good report there, Dave. You covered it all, I think. And I was interested to see Marcel's neighbor. Certainly he's got a amiable neighbor, and that's good to have when you start that kind of a thing. So no, that's perfect. Are we going to deal with the minor variance and make that legal at this time too? Is my one thought. And the other thought is that I think maybe we can leave the landscaping to Marcel and Dave as well, because once you get something in place where it's a little easier to decide whether you're going to put trees in or just what you're going to put in. So I don't know that we should be in the middle of that as a committee sort of thing, would be my feeling. So that's all, Bob. I certainly would support this application at this point in time, but we should deal with the minor variance of the setback as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Jerry. Dave, to that. Now, as always, during the process here, as the chair, I'm always the last one to ask questions and comments. Dave, first off, I'm going to say I think this is a spectacular application. I think that it is an excellent opportunity in the town of Mono for infilling is the wrong word, but rather than having to add population to Mono, having applications for 200 3-story townhomes, and that this is a great way for in the right location to accommodate more Mono residents. So I'm very supportive of that. Dave, my understanding, your condition number 7 here, that takes care of what
Yes.
Jerry just brought up, correct?
Yes, it does. And so for Jerry's clarification here, Jerry, we can include that in any notice of decision of approval. That it legalizes the exterior side yard setback as noted. It's a very much of a housekeeping matter, if you will. And again, thanks to Donna Pasco, who came up with that revised architectural plan to identify that. Because if it were found later, technically, Marcel could be made to undergo another application to deal with that. Not sure if that would happen, but could.
We have had many of these before, and Dave is right, Marcel. It's smart for you to get that taken care of right now. Then you're going to be living there for a long time. You're young people. You're not going to have to be looking over your shoulder. I'm teasing. I'm joking. So yes, it's the right thing.
To your point, Bob, if Marcel and his wife in some years from now go and sell that property, that could most likely be flagged as part of any offer of sale and purchase through due diligence by the buyer's lawyer and say, hey, wait a minute, we got a deficient exterior side yard here. How's that going to be dealt with? Was it legalized, Marcel, or not? And now he can put two thumbs up and say, yes, it was.
Well, and Dave, you're right. And if whoever you were selling it to got a lawyer who actually did their job, they would find that, and then you would be in trouble. So this is good to get this taken care of right now. Having said that, and yes, I will be supporting this application. Next, for those of you that are new to the committee, the next item here is for any of the public who are attending. I see that there is one name here. If there's anybody from the public who would like to comment or question on this, this is your opportunity to do that. Dave, what's up?
May I just make one more point? Yeah, if I may just make one more point before it escapes me, and that is Marcel will have to get a road occupancy permit as part of the actual construction works, but that'll be at the time he actually undergoes construction through a building permit. So Marcel, just keep that in mind. You will need a road occupancy permit for the contractor, equipment, and materials, just so you know.
That's in your report, Dave. That's
Yes,
in Dave's report. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
It is,
was in there. Yes. So thank you, Dave. So then back to anybody from the public wants to question, comment about this. This is your chance. And 3, 2, 1, seeing none. With that, now committee, this is our opportunity. I'm not sure that we need any more discussion on this. If any committee members want to, you're welcome to, or I'll be calling for someone to move that we approve this. Sorry, maybe Jerry, you brought it up, point number 3 about the landscaping. I personally don't have a problem with leaving that in there. Marcel, you've read this condition number 3 here about the landscaping.
Yeah.
Do you find that?
I don't have any hang up with leaving it in there either, Bob, but not at all. I just don't think that we should be, as a committee, should say, well, it should be trees, or it should be raised, or it should be lowered. I think there's a common sense thing there between Marcel and certainly Dave will be looking after that as he gets into the building process. That's the only point that I would make.
Jerry, I agree with you completely. Well, we're not putting down here that Marcel and Lisa have got to plant X number of trees. This is going to be a friendly thing between Marcel, Lisa, and Dave Trotman. And Trotman is our friend Dave Trotman is a reasonable guy. So
could I add something
Jerry,
there?
okay with leaving that in there?
Could I add something to that maybe? Could the neighbor on 11 Linda be also consulted with this? Because my conversations with her have been like, we know each other a little bit now. We see each other on the road, we talk, and especially her message to me where she was like, she doesn't care too much. Maybe she doesn't need any vegetation there or any fencing, and she's fine with the way it is. Would that be something that we could add to that, or do we make the process more complicated that way?
You know,
That's my point.
yeah,
That's my point exactly. No.
Yeah,
yeah,
thanks,
Jerry, you're
Thanks.
right. Marcel, you're right.
If I may, just
Yeah, Dave.
so I've noted as a condition that says the owner understands and agrees in writing. So that's a letter. Marcel's going to give me a letter saying I understand and agree that if there's a need for landscaping, you're going to give me guidance to what might be needed. And of course, we can involve the neighbor to the south at 11 Linda. And if it comes to be that she needs 0 to precious little landscaping, then so be it. That'll satisfy it. So the condition will be that you give me the letter and agree and understand. So I make that, so you got to make that commitment, and it has to be material, substantive, and meaningful and truthful. That, you know, if
And
she
what-
does say,
what
well, you
time?
know, yes, a couple more trees.
At what time in the
Pardon?
process? After the build has been completed, I imagine?
I think once the addition is well underway, Marcel, so we get a real sense of its mass scene, and I say that only in our architectural term, its position on the lot. And she does say, well, you know, yes, a few more trees would be nice here, Marcel. Then at that point, I'm going to turn to you and say, Marcel, you need to plant some trees, okay? I'll specify the species so they're tolerable and they're relevant for the area. That's about it. I just want to, the key thing is, do you write a letter and agree to that? And I've got to be reasonable. Of course I will be reasonable. And I have no doubt your neighbor will be too, but that you fulfill the spirit of that letter. Okay, that's the key thing. That you know, you and your wife sign it and you stand behind that. And of course I'm going to be reasonable. It's really to make sure that the neighbor to the south doesn't step back after the fact and say, golly gee, I wish there had been a bit of landscaping there now. This will help to fulfill and meet that position, that desire, and that perception. That's really what it's about.
Not a problem at all.
As Jerry says, you can leave this. I like to say that case.
No,
So-
not a problem at all. We understand that. We want to make sure that everybody is happy in this, and we want to have happy neighbors, and so no, absolutely, that would not be an issue.
Marcel, I think it actually will benefit you too. So the place that I'm sitting in here right now, I put 3 huge trees between me and my neighbor next door for my benefit. So I think that this is just a smart thing to put in there. So
No, makes sense.
yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that. That's all. We have no concerns whatsoever.
This is not meant to be something that's onerous and ridiculous and that it's just good common sense.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, committee members, any further discussion, or does somebody want to move that for approval of this subject to the conditions that Dave has there?
I will so move.
I'll second Jerry.
Okay, I heard Jerry moving it, seconded by Dave. Any objections to it? Seeing none, that's unanimous. It's approved. Marcel, Dave and or Susan, and that will be in touch for all the official stuff that has to go along with this. But you're on your way. For your,
Thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody's time and your commitment to it. It's been a learning curve for us. And yeah, we want to, on the record, maybe thank Donna, who has been very helpful guiding us through this process. We've done a lot ourselves, but especially in the last 2 weeks, she's stepped up and helped us tremendously. We were very busy moving and all kinds of things that come with this. And so for her to help us is great. And David, thank you for your time. You've been very approachable, and so was Susan. We did quite a bit of communication back and forth, and we've got a response in a very timely manner. So I really appreciate everybody's help in this, and we look forward to working with you when we have the final plans approved by the engineers and moving forward with our building permits with the county as well. So everybody, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Hey, you know,
So my
Marcel, I meant to ask you, it's curiosity, you don't have to answer this. Where did you move from?
So we lived in Hillsburg. We rented a farm in Hillsburg for about 4.5 years. I own a business and it's on that property. And so it took a little while, but now we have decided to buy a property, and we saw this, and my in-laws want to live closer to us. And we looked at the lot size and we talked to the agents, make a few phone calls. We had a 2-week period before we purchased the house. We could do our due diligence, and I spoke to Susan of the town, and we had a couple of conversations and found out that, like, yeah, if we do our due diligence, that there's a good opportunity for us to get what we want. And so
Excellent.
so amazing. Thank you.
Glad to hear that. This is a great older mono subdivision there. If any of the rest of you know it, I live in the Island Lake subdivision. So at any rate, I'm rambling now. But congratulations, that's wonderful. With that, Dave, I think we've done everything on this application.
We have.
We have. With that, so
We have a moved application approved subject to those conditions, and the notice will reflect that.
excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Marcel, thank you. That's the end of that. Moving on then on our agenda, other business. I brought up a couple of things here. Something I wanted to ask committee members. Oh, you know what? First, I should speak last. Anybody else got any other business? Anything come to mind? Questions, comments? Marcel, you're gone? Can't hear you.
Sorry, my timing wasn't great. I wanted to say good night.
Marcel, thank you. Have a good night. Finish
You
your
can leave
dinner.
the meeting, Marcel, if you want. Yeah, you can leave, Marcel, now.
Yeah, thank you.
I think Susan has a question or comment, Bob.
Wonderful. Yes, please.
Yeah, I think Eric had mentioned that he would like a copy of the official plan and zoning bylaws. Sorry, Eric, I didn't get that to you this week. But if anybody does need a hard copy of that, let me know. Okay, we'll get that. Yeah, Dave? Okay.
I'm retired, but I have a home office here, and I can see the two of them sitting over here. They are about that thick, but you know what? I think it's great. Jerry, you still have yours, eh?
I still have mine, yeah.
Yeah. Susan, thanks for bringing that up, and Eric, Dave, thanks for asking for those. I think they're important. Every now and again, I look at them, and that they are boring as all get out, but you know what? They're good. So Susan, thank you for taking care of that. As I say, they are about that thick, each of them. So that's
The last
that.
time I had a copy, it was only 3/4 of an inch thick, so that was 25 years ago. It's growing again.
I don't want to leave here. I could get up and I'll show you anyhow. Susan, thanks. Anything else, Susan?
No, that's all I thought about for tonight.
Okay, so we took care of that. We took care of talking about ID badges. Susan, maybe you can help the guys with that, please. But at least they know that where is it here? That they're going to be getting one of those. Next, what else? What I'm going to do, you saw Eric and Dave, you saw the process there. It's pretty straightforward in that. This committee of adjustment, these meetings, they don't have to go long. This has gone on a little longer than normal. Most committee of adjustment applications, if we had 3 or 4 of them, we would be allowing, just so you get an idea of it, the schedule would be for about 10 minutes each, right, Susan? You know, if you look at a committee of adjustment agenda for another municipality, you will see they're about 10 minutes apart. This is not a committee for, big discussion and debate and all of that kind of stuff. Our job is to approve minor variances. So next time, if we have 2 or 3 of them, you'll see, and don't be surprised, they'll be scheduled about 10 minutes apart. I'd like to ask one thing for the next meeting. I was well, I'll tell you I was 40 years in professional sales, and for me it was always important to understand who I was dealing with, and that. So I don't want to put you guys on the spot tonight, but for the next meeting, if you're agreeable, I would like for everybody to just give a short bio of who they are and what they do or are about. I'm going to lead that off here tonight to give you an idea and that, because I just think it's important that we know each other. Eric, I don't know you. Dave, I don't know you. Jerry and I have been on committees. Jerry, I can't remember how many years, almost 30. So we kind of know each other. Yeah, but for example, here's Bob McCrae. All right, I'm a Mono resident for about 30 years. I live in the Island Lake subdivision at the south end of town. I have been on Mono committees for almost 30 years, the planning committee and the committee of adjustment. And this term of council, I have been appointed to both of those as well. A little bit of background quickly. In 1976, I got my degree in urban and regional planning at the University of Waterloo. After 6 months of that, I got fed up with being a planner, Dave Trotman. He's not listening. I practiced for about 6 months, but got fed up with dealing.
I always said you made the better choice. So there you go.
Dave and I have talked about this, but I got a great education. I switched gears completely and got into professional sales, and I was in professional sales for 40 years. Over 35 of those in high-tech industrial sales. I have been retired for officially for over 10 years now, and living a good life here in South Mono. So that's my story. You know me now, and that. So I hope that your next meeting, you can give a minute or two of who you are, and that, unless anybody wants to do that tonight. But don't give in. These meetings are recorded. We have all that privacy stuff, which has become more and more important over the years. So we're not looking for specifics of where you live and all this kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? What I just said there is, I hope that gives you a better idea of who Bob McCrae is.
Excellent. Hey, Bob, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is it normal to have the applicant in the meeting before it turns public? Like, it's very hard to have a discussion asking questions regarding the application or process when you've got the actual applicant in the call live.
Dave, the answer to that is simple. Yes, it is. It is normal.
Yeah.
And think back to the day when these meetings were in person in the council chambers. And I'm hoping that sometime during 2023, as Mono Council are now back in person in the council chambers. So in those days, the applicant was always sitting there in the audience.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's an interesting point, though, that Dave's made. And I would add this: you're the gatekeepers, if you will, of policy, of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, and they have longer term consequences and implications. And an applicant, and let me say this too, let me preface it. I mean, the vast majority of applicants that come forward with above board, noble, and meritorious reasons for relief of a minor variance or seeking a consent. But there could, and I have been cases where, a developer comes forward looking simply to make a buck, well, there's nothing wrong with making a buck, and wants to get, say, some severances off a lot that's a bit larger than others in a neighborhood. But really, in view of scrutinizing the merits of it, you realize this really is not in keeping with the neighborhood, shall we say. There may be other matters that leave questions, and you start to realize quietly to yourself, this is simply to make some money and move on. And that's fine. They're there to try to seek an opportunity, but you're there to examine these things in the context of the policy, the official plan, and the zoning bylaw.
But
And so,
Dave, can I talk to what Dave Carbert actually asked there?
sure.
And what Dave Trotman is saying is true, but these are completely public meetings. They are open to anybody right from the get-go. We don't hide anything. We don't have secret in-camera meetings like council do. And so your question is a good one. It's a good one. But yeah, if picture us sitting at the council table and the audience is there, and whether it's the applicant or residents or that, they're all there right from the start of the meeting. I will defend that. Any of you that know me know one of the things that I learned with getting my degree in urban planning is that one of the most important things is the process. And this is an open and public process. And if it's not, then we got a problem.
We've even
Sorry,
we've
Jerry.
even pretty near, we've pretty near even got it problems. You can't go and discuss a meeting afterwards or make things changes afterwards, and it just because it just gets you in trouble left, right, and center. So as long as it's all up front and openly and it's transparent, why we don't usually we haven't had too many problems.
Yeah, I understand
I
the
think if I
process.
understand your implication being that, don't be, committee members do not need or required to be shy or discreet about an application that in front of them they see an issue or a problem, and that you're there individually and collectively to say, no, Mr. Smith, I'm seeing issues here, I'm seeing problems here, and I'm not going to be shy to tell you I don't like what I see. I mean, to be professional, yes, but to say in as many words, I don't like what I see here. I don't know what my other fellow members think, and so that deliberation can happen in front of the member of the applicant. So
I understand that completely. It's more a point of
you're sitting on the bench, as it were. You're sitting on the bench, and you're.
May not be for every meeting, but the
Guys,
act does.
we're talking over each other. Dave, you finish yours, and then Eric wants to speak.
Yeah.
Dave Carver.
I'll just wrap up. You are dispensing a decision, and it may not always be to the applicant's liking. And if it's not, and I'll just finish up by saying this, if it's not, they have an appeal mechanism. As Bob said, the process is important. They have an opportunity to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal if they see fit to do so, and off they go. And that's a final decision there. And by the way, that's a final decision. They may not get relief there, and I've seen it in some cases too, where they expect that the OLT or the board is going to reverse a committee decision, and they don't. They uphold it.
Okay, Dave Carver, anything else there?
That's all I'm going to say.
It's more a point that both Eric and I are new to this process, but when I first looked at this, and it's called a minor variance, my first thought was, that's quite a minor variance. You're doubling the size of the property. It was more questions that I wanted to talk to you guys about without having the client in that meeting, just because I don't have any reference or past history to say, okay, it doesn't mean that, but you can see in the end that, the requirements are all being met and everything. That part's fine. It's just, I was more looking forward to the opportunity to actually be able to discuss it first before having the client in there. But in the public process, I've been through that. I understand that.
Eric, before I asked you for your comments, was something that Dave just said there, and I think it's important. David, what you said is a good point here, but in actual fact, and I attended there's an annual committee of adjustment meeting where people get together and discuss things and have workshops and that kind of things. I attended one of those years ago and wrote up a comprehensive report. I'm going to try to find it. And in fact, the ID card came out of that meeting that I attended. But one other thing that's important, and to speak to what you were saying, in advance of these meetings, we should not be discussing with each other.
No, I
That's
can
a no-no.
understand that.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't obvious to me, before I attended that meeting, it wasn't obvious to me. So, we shouldn't be, before one of these meetings, we shouldn't be sending emails around and all of that kind of stuff, because then it's like a collusion for or against something, and that's not right. So that's that. That's all I had to say about that. And but Dave Trotman, let me just ask. Eric had something to say.
A couple of things. First of all, Dave, I had the same issue when I first read this. The word minor in minor variance cannot be interpreted as a doubling of the size of the house. I did two things. First of all, I looked at a number of cases, of divisional court cases, and I spoke to Dave Trotman. And what a committee can't do in advance is advance the process. We can't make decisions, but there's nothing wrong with talking amongst ourselves in advance of a meeting just to get further understanding, ask questions. That's completely permissible. But more importantly, the Act does allow us to reserve decisions. We don't have to make decisions tonight. An application like this, which is very straightforward, but if things arise during a meeting or where somebody is troubled, they can bring a motion to reserve the decision. You don't necessarily have to defer it. That's another option, but you can reserve your decisions. The Act expressly allows that. So we can bring a motion, say we want to defer it. That then allows the committee, after all the evidence, all the arguments have been heard, to convene themselves and talk amongst ourselves as to whether or not and how we want to decide. We cannot entertain new evidence during that meeting, in a subsequent meeting, under a reserve. If any new evidence comes in, then you must go back to the parties and give them an opportunity to address it. But you can deliberate privately after the meeting.
Okay. Dave Trotman, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Yes, so I have seen this approach in the past municipality. NewTek did this, although they didn't adhere to the new evidence measure that you cited, Eric. And what happened was they would go off and deliberate while in committee, sitting as committee, and they'd hear the application. And if I recall, then they would retire, if I can use that word, for 10 minutes or less into a side room and talk about it amongst themselves, not with staff, not with the applicant, and banter around what they saw were the merits or non-merits of the application, and then come back in and sit and continue in their capacity as committee leading up to a decision. There were times though where there was skepticism. What deals or what things were happening in that side room that may have been necessarily not above board or not to protocol or things of this nature. And there was a lot of rumor more than anything, but it didn't leave a good impression sometimes, not always, but sometimes with the applicant wondering what are they chatting about behind my back, sort of thing. Look, we can look, at your behest, Bob, as chair, we can look at, okay, is there nuances to how we, your committee looks at an application, and if there's a possibility to encapsulate what Eric and Dave have mentioned, then we can try and get that back to committee with some in a summary form for you as committee to deliberate and consider if that's what committee chooses to do. So that would be a modification to process, I suppose. But I mean, look, I'm not a lawyer, so I would defer to Eric and Dave, I guess, in that capacity. I will do what I can then if this is something you as a committee want to look at, but I leave it in your hands to instruct me. Okay.
Jerry, you may want to speak to this. I've been on this committee for years, and it never really came up. We have deferred some decisions. One of the bigger ones that we did recently, Jerry, you'll remember this, the hotel and medical center, Highway 10 behind Royal Chev-Olds. They attended to the Committee of Adjustment. We didn't like all of what we heard at their first meeting. We deferred the decision, asked them to come back with other information, which if they'd been smart, they would have done it at the first meeting. But anyhow, they came back with the information and it was passed unanimously. So, Jerry,
I don't know. I guess consensus with the committee, whatever the committee wants to do. But over the last number of years, we haven't really had a problem with that, and we certainly want to be collaborative with both the applicant and Dave does an excellent job there of going over the stuff, and whatever the applicant has. And I guess the other half of that is that we want to be very transparent with it. So I think if we're transparent, whether it's pro or against with the applicant, then they know where they're going, because it's certainly, whether we like it or not, they're the ratepayers, they're paying the fees to get through this process and try to, hopefully they're trying to make the community better as they go, and better for themselves and better for us all. And I guess part of the reason that we're here is to make sure that we are making the community better for us all. So whether that turns out to be right or not, why, that's certainly my kick at the cat. That's the only reason I'm on the committee. When Bob went through his, I always say common sense is not so common. I was born and raised on this farm, and still farming it. It's a century farm. We farm 600 acres. I put in my 52nd crop in this year, so it makes me kind of an old fart, I guess. But I was the manager with Bell Canada for 30 years and worked the farm at the same time. So I kind of know what the midnight sun is like. Past president of the local chamber of commerce, on the board of directors of the Federation of Agriculture and the board of directors of the Soil and Crop Association, and of course these two committees. So I guess I feel that I've got a bit of stake in this community, and so I'd like to, and I think everybody here has. I don't think there's any doubt about that, or you wouldn't get onto this kind of a committee, or any kind of a committee for that matter. So, because it takes time and it takes effort. But I don't think we're trying to be anything but transparent with anything, with anybody. And I also hope that we're all trying to make it a better community and look 30 years down the road as to what the whole society is going to be. And certainly I won't be around to know about that, but our grandkids are going to be, I guess. And so let's try and make it better. So that's my kick at the cat. Be it right, wrong, or indifferent, that's where I'm at. So I'm not going to beleaguer it anymore.
No, thank you, Jerry. The meeting's gone on longer than I expected, but it's our first meeting, and again, typically they will not, and that. So Eric and Dave, if you're okay with it, and that, can you wait until the next meeting, and especially with Corinne Pollard, who isn't here. I'd love to hear your stories then, if you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
And again, Eric and Dave, I share your opinion about tonight's application. At first blush, it didn't look that minor. but I don't know if you drove past the property or not. I, you know, as I looked at it all and then saw better drawings of what they were putting on there, we're going to see more of these. I mean, those homes on Linda and Randy there, they're small homes on decent sized lots. There's going to be more of these, I'll bet you. So, you know, we may get to deal with them. We'll see. You know, you get a young couple like the applicant tonight moving there, and you know, what a great thing to do. Build that on, and they're there with one of their parents and that. So I think we. I always say this. We did good work tonight. We did good work tonight. I think we made the right decision. We should be proud of what we did tonight, and you'll see that this committee of adjustment, it's not rocket science. Wait till we get an application for someone that wants to build a deck that's bigger than the size of the deck that's allowable, and we've had a few of those, Jerry? So. You know, it's really fascinating, some of the stuff that comes to the committee of adjustment. I love it. So I hope you'll have welcome you to the committee, and I hope you have a good time with this. So let me know if you're not.
No, thanks. Sorry, my short question turned into a 10-minute rebuttal, but really Dave Trotman's whole presentation back kind of put me at ease once I read through everything and saw the drawings. So it was more just a point. I just understand how our process works as the committee, and you guys clarified that for me just perfect. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Eric, anything else?
No, I did enjoy this, and I agree. This was I thought really a straightforward application that you know, begged for approval.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Even though minor was stretched tonight.
I agree with you completely, but it was the right thing to do, and we passed it unanimously. So we did good work. Anything else before we adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn. I will make a motion that we adjourn if no one has anything else, Bob.
Somebody going to second that?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Time to go and have a beer, and I don't know if the Jays are still playing. And that last thing that I always have to do is to thank our great support, Susan and David Trotman. Thank you. You do a great job. We really appreciate it, and help us to stick handle all this stuff and come up with the right decisions. So thank you. With that,
Thanks,
everybody, have a great night.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Right.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And thank you to the new members. Look forward to it. Bye-bye.